Hey, what's up, everybody? So I wanted to break down this cue, Heroes and Goats, because it's gotten a pretty wide range of usage across various areas, NFL, college basketball, Euro sport. So I thought this would be a good cue to kind of dive into and, break it down a little bit and see perhaps why it's been to date pretty successful for me. So you guys know how we do. First, we'll take a listen to it and then we'll talk about it on the flip. All right, let's get it. Okay, so there it is, Heroes and Goats. This cue was originally written for 2024 NFL season. Did find some usage there on NFL Today on CBS, but like I said, outside of that, we were able to find some other usage for it. So I want to just take a minute and kind of break it down a bit. So some of the particulars about the cue, it's in D minor and it's at 90 beats per minute. So what I want to do, I think first of all, is just kind of show you guys the usage. Hey, real quick, if you're finding this content to be useful, I'm going to ask you in advance to please like, please subscribe, or please share it with someone that you think it can help. It'll really help them and it'll help my channel as well. All right, thanks so much, and let's get back to it. On this, and let's go here. So you guys know that I'm just kind of not talking out talking out of the side of my neck. So let's go here and we'll find Heroes and Goats, and then we'll just look at that so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So this is just my my track detections, but if you so you guys can see, so I've had 29 hits on it since it has been released. CBS Sports Network, CBS Eurosport UK, and Eurosport Pan Euro, and you can just kind of see just the various times that it's played, what those were for. And then you see most recently, just, I'm recording this at the end of April, and you see kind of mid-April. We also are still getting some usage from it, and we started my first hit, at least in terms of track, was in November, and I don't know if TuneSat picked something else up, but that's what we have there. So just so you guys know that what I'm talking about is real. It's real airplay. It's happening. Like today, this isn't just somebody getting on here talking out of the side of their neck. So let's start with the drum. So what I'll do first is I'll kind of just break down my instrumentation, which you'll notice I don't have a whole bunch of it, and then we'll talk about the form. And then also Marcus Chisholm 3470 on my last video put in the comments, he asked me if I would show how I pan everything. So I'm going to include that in this breakdown, and I'm going to put my mixer in the lower window. So when I play something, Marcus and then anybody else who's interested can see how everything is panned. So let's start with the drums. So first thing I'll do is just kind of play the drums together. I'll take the timpani out, and I'll take the tubular bells out, and this is what we got. So that's sort of bass, and then as it builds, we add some other stuff in. So there's that. And the thing is, probably the most of what I have, going on is drums, through layering, or whatever. But even with that said, there's not a whole bunch going on. So we'll kind of go through it. And then, so what we have with the timpani, just quickly. So that's pretty much, sorry about that. That's pretty much it for the timpani. And then the tube is just, hitting on tonic where it makes sense. So don't really need to break that down. For my kick, pretty much what we have going on here is you can kind of see, got a high pass at 60, got a low pass around 1150. Of course, pan straight up and down. And then I'll get into this a little later, but I do have it side chained to my bass. And then as you can see, my sends are pre-fader, which means no matter what I do, if I touch the fader and take the fader down, it's not going to affect the amount of signal that I'm sending, because it's pre-fader as opposed to post-fader. And then of course, and if you guys follow my channel, you know that typically I always have the CLA 2A on my kick. Getting about a dB of gain reduction. But it's really just about the impact the CLA makes. I'll play it, bypass it, and then put it back on. Excuse me. So you see the huge difference that the CLA 2A makes, and I'll show you guys how I have it side chain when I get to my bass. Okay. Other than that, I call it trap snare, but it's really like a rim. And I do have the CLA2A on that as well. I don't need to show you guys that. Just an 808 snare. And then I have a couple of loops that I'm playing. So you see I got that pan about 17 degrees left. And then I have another loop. So you hear, and I got that pan 19 degrees to the right, but something I want to show you as it relates to this loop, it's just a 4-on-the-floor loop, as you guys could probably hear. But what I do is pretty much I just, you see I high pass it pretty aggressively at about 205, and I low pass it as well. So if we actually bypass the EQing on it, which one was it? It was this one. So you see it's a pretty big difference. I just like the feel of it, and I really like it with this other loop. So the two together. So we got that, you know, claps or whatever. I'll show you my bongos. And you see also with my bongos how I pan those. So 33 degrees left, 33 degrees right for the other, just to give us that decent spread between the two. And it's two different bongo loops that I have. So it's a different one on the left than it is on the right, but this is what left sounds like. Right. And it's kind of cool just to have that different rhythmic energy. It just adds a little more, you know, energy as opposed to having the same exact thing and maybe some phasing and stuff like that. So here's what we got. That's what we have there. Of course, tubular bells, like I said, just hitting on tonic. Got that thing straight up and down, and it rings like forever. And then I have an a-go-go. And one thing you'll notice about the a-go-go, I did pitch it to, so if I show the sample, because it's actually a sample. So I did pitch it to get it on D, so the a-go-go, you know, is playing in key. And I think for an a-go-go, it's always kind of important, if you can, to try to pitch it where it, you know, it's kind of around the key. At least I like to do that. And then I just warped it and synced it, because it's actually a loop that I found that I like, just an a-go-go loop. So that's that. Then I have some chain hits. All right, my computer was thinking. Sorry, some chain hits. Okay, and the only thing I probably want to note about this, and you probably can't see it, and I don't know if I can show you here. No, because my noggin is in the way. Let me see if we can. No, I can't move that up for you. But anyway, I do have the negative track delay at minus 300 milliseconds, because that hit, it takes so long to get there. So you do, like, if you guys are using the chain hit from Synth, I know for a fact that like minus 300 milliseconds works like perfectly. So just a note there. And then just a Piatti, you know, just the orchestral symbols that I have there. So for my brass, not much happening at all. I have a combination of Pandora, Monster Low Brass, and a Halion guitar that are all kind of playing the same line. So that's their job, just kind of holding down at the bottom or whatever. And then with the guitar, just so you guys can see what I'm doing there. So you see I have that high pass to 400. So we're cutting off a little at the low end of it, but we don't need it. I mean, we got that brass down there. And then, as you guys know, I love the CLA guitars. So I do have that on the guitar, and I have that set to heavy, and I have the re-amplify on as well. And I mean, that's it for the low brass. And then for my melody, I have the horn melody, and then half of it, I double that with a higher guitar. And then I'll kind of show you kind of how we have that pan in comparison to the low guitar. So we play those horns along with that guitar. So if you notice what I tried to do, first of all, the horns kind of sit where they sit. You hear them, they're kind of just where they sit in the orchestra, kind of, to the left center, just a little bit. So I don't really mess with that, too much. This is just kind of my setting within my template that I have for them, but that's pretty much where they sit. And then I just move that guitar over to the left, so it's kind of sitting with the horns. But my low guitar, which is here, you'll notice that I have that pan to the right, just so there's some separation between those two guitars. All right. And then, of course, we have trumpets that also come in on the second half of that melody. And it's nothing, just to add some layering, and that's center brass trumpets that I'm using there. Okay, so that's that. And then the next thing we have is I have a synth that's just playing some chords. And you see how the panning is there. And you'll notice sometimes I'm using a combined stereo panner. And I like to do that just so I don't lose the other side of the stereo field. Like if we just use the balance panner, pretty much it's just going to balance it to the left or the right. But with the combined stereo panner, although you hear the synth more right, you still get that left side. So, you're getting more true kind of stereo as opposed to just like, you're moving it to one side or the other. So if you see the combined stereo panner on some things, that's why. All right. And then we have our strings, and I'll do those. Okay, and that's it for the strings. I like to oftentimes harmonize my string line, which you heard there. And again, we already talked about the panning, but you can see how it's panned, and then I had to do a little volume automation with my violas. So that's why you see that read automation on there, because I did a little volume automation. And where's that viola? Let's see. Okay, I don't know where the automation kicks in. Oh, there it is. I just saw it. So going into the breakdown, I raised the volume there. I'm sorry, it took like a year to find out where that was, but I at least wanted you to see what I was talking about in terms of the volume automation there. Okay, and then I have a bass, and of course I'm using a 808. And what I am doing here is I'm using a one shot. It's called main butter or something to that effect. So it's just an 808 one shot, and I just play in what I want. So if we play that with the low brass, you'll hear how they support each other. So the bass handles the movement, giving it just a little motion, things of that nature. And the low brass is just there to kind of help support that 808 there. And so the only other thing that I do have happening with the 808, well, first of all, you can see how I have it high pass. Of course, I have this at 40 because this is the low end is all the bass is all by itself, and then I have it high pass almost at 4K because we don't need that high end. So if you see, okay, and then the only other thing is I do have it side chained to the kick. So let me show you guys that. And basically what I'm trying to accomplish is when the kick hits, I want the kick to reduce the bass level so the kick cuts through. And I just adjusted it till I felt like it was right. I mean, it's getting about 11 dB of reduction, but it sounds right. And that's the most important thing to me. Where does it sound like the kick is still, cutting through? All right, so there you have that, and pretty much, I mean, I'm just using the standard. You see Steinberg compressor, and you just go into here and route, your side chain source. So my side chain source is my kick, and then I want to send, and then I showed you guys on the other side, how I had my send set up in terms of how much gain I was giving the kick, on the other side, and that's it. Pretty simple setup. This is a pretty cool compressor for side chaining, but there are a number of compressors that you can use to accomplish the same thing. Excuse me. And then the only other thing I do have another bass that I'm using. This is the Sub Fatty here from Sub Lab. I'm sorry, XL, the Sub Fatty that I use on my second breakdown, and that is. And that's the whole job of that bass. So that's it. besides a riser that builds some energy for us to get into the last section of the cue. So that's it for the sound. So now what I'll do is just very quickly, and I can get rid of the mix console now because you pretty much have seen the panning. So I'm now just going to very quickly kind of take you through the form. So real simple. So this thing starts, as you can see here, with an 8-bar intro, right? And pretty much what we have in terms of form and in terms of building. So the first 4 bars you hear, and then the next 4 bars, all I do is add on high strings. So the first 4 bars start. Then the next 4 bars, I add on a layer of strings. Boom, right? So then on the next set of bars, I'm into, excuse me, adding my horn melody, and I add some bongos, and I add the agogo. So, you know, just to kind of up the energy just a little more. So that next 4. Okay, then the next 4 bars, I add the trumpets and the high guitar. So as you can see, from the time this cue started, every 4 bars, there was something different happening. And now I'm at my breakdown, which is now, of course, something new happening because it's a breakdown. So we start our breakdown. And so what we have here is you have 2 bars of the breakdown, excuse me, and then going into the 3rd bar. Well, let me play the first 2 bars. So that's the first 2 bars. Then getting into the next 2 bars, I add a tam-tam to get us into bar 3, and then I take my strings up. So I layer on some strings, and then the next 2 bars, I lay the strings again. So you'll hear tam-tam going into bar 3 of the breakdown and the string layer, and then you'll hear another string layer going into bar 4 of the breakdown. Strings, and they go up again. So again, every, 4 bars, but sometimes even 2 bars, there's something else happening. So now we're back to the theme. So this theme needs to feel different from the first theme. So what I do on this theme is I do a half melody on my horns. I don't have the guitars or the trumpets in at all. And then you'll hear a slight harmonic change on the second half. So first half is just a half horn melody. And right there was a harmonic change. So I went to a G minor chord instead of a B flat major chord, which is typically what I had done up until that point. So again, that you hear the theme comes back, but it's a half a theme, and then we have a harmonic change as well in the second half. And now we're into breakdown number 2. And what you will notice here is that this breakdown is different than the first breakdown. So in this breakdown, I added a synth to go along with the strings, so that in this first breakdown, the strings were. And now if we go over here, I have them, but I also add this synth. So just just for something different. The other thing is now I have a sustained bass, and the movement that was happening with the bass is now totally just kind of laid in there with some little octave movement, but the bass is just laying in now. So. Okay, and then, so what I also did on the first half of it that's different is I removed the loops. So it's not as much energy at all, and got a sustained bass. Second half of it, which is like, now the next 4 bars, as you can see, I add the loops back in. I also have a riser that's kind of going throughout and building energy to kind of get us into the last section. So here's the second half of the breakdown. And you also hit a different note, right? And just everything just kind of taking us in to the last section, even with the little, bass run. You got the riser building us up to this last section. So now we're at the hook, right? Again, so the hook's got to be different. So this is the third time you hear the hook, and the hook is different once more. And typically the only thing that I do to make the hook different this time is, everybody's in now that plays the melody. Everybody's in playing the melody. So, it's just a much bigger melody this time, off to a nice button. And notice also that now we have harmonic changes throughout this last section. So as you guys can hear, just real kind of simple formula in terms of how you want to approach this type of cue. So this is, I promise you, the formula to writing just about any cue for sync in terms of, layering, taking away, making things sound a little different. Whatever. I promise you it's not rocket science, but it does take a little while just to get into the flow and the feel kind of what works and how it does work. And as you guys saw, I'm not using a ton of sounds. My drums are layered pretty good, but nothing crazy. So again, I just wanted to pop in real quick, break this cue down for you guys, because again, it's getting some good usage in various areas, football, basketball, whatever, ski jumping, whatever it may be. But point being that if you have a cue that kind of works from that standpoint, you can get more usage out of it, which is, the end goal. We want to get as much airplay as possible. And then the other thing, I think it may help. Like, I think the heroes and goats title might kind of help. I mean, you see Heroes and Goats. I mean, you kind of know it's sports. And who knows, maybe that title's a little interesting. I don't know, but I just say that try to put some thought into your titles as well, because I think that may help, in some cases also. So who knows, but it may. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you did find it helpful, please please subscribe, share it with somebody if you think it would help them as well. As always, I mean, I'm here just to try to, give anything that I can from the standpoint of education, standpoint of inspiration. I'm not super far along, in this thing. I mean, I'm only at, maybe about 300 signed cues. There's folks out there with 1,000 and 2,000 and all that stuff. So I'm trying to help those that are probably where I was a couple of years ago. You're just starting out on your journey, and you're just kind of wondering if you can do this thing. And yeah, you can. The thing is, just stay consistent, keep writing. You'll look up one day and have a few hundred cues signed or whatever, and working on more. Some in the pot maybe that just haven't even shown up yet or whatever, and signing more deals and etc. So it's just about, I think, more than anything, excuse me, staying consistent in this game, because it is a long game, y'all. So if you're in it to win it, just stay with it and just keep at it. Put one foot in front of the other, day by day. Try not to look too far down the road, because it will look like it's really, really far. But if you just look right in front of you, you'll look up and eventually you'll get to your journey. So hope this helps. Thanks so much, guys, for stopping by. Thanks for all your support. I really appreciate it. And the other thing, y'all, I'm I think 4 subs away from 1,000. So come on, y'all, share it with somebody that you think my content will help. I don't just want a sub just to have a sub. I want somebody to just subscribe, that the content is going to help them. But we're almost at 1,000, y'all. So maybe when I come back, my next video will be at 1,000 subscribers. So thanks so much, everybody. Peace and God bless.